Welcome to WealthRise Stories, where clarity meets knowledge, and knowledge becomes financial power.
Hello, my friends, my fellow travelers on this journey of exploring the world. Have you ever stood in front of a familiar food truck on the corner or inside a modern sandwich shop and suddenly wondered, this simple sandwich, what stories are hidden behind it? You may not realize it, but inside the humble look of a sandwich, whether it's stuffed with roasted pork, cold cuts pâté, or even a sunny-side-up egg, lies an entire universe of economic principles. Invisible forces concepts you might think only exist in textbooks are actually operating right in front of us every single day, every single hour, even in every bite you take. Today we're going to connect all those seemingly unrelated dots, starting with a single sandwich, to look deeper into the book, Business Administration Theory Practice and Application. Volume 1, Business Economics. The title may sound dry, but the world inside is full of fascinating stories about how the world really works. So join me through the story of this sandwich as we uncover the economic mysteries we often overlook without even knowing it. The first question, one we've all probably wondered at some point: why can the exact same sandwich cost so much more in downtown Manhattan than in a quiet neighborhood in Queens or Brooklyn? Picture this. A classic deli sandwich from a small shop in a side street in Queens might cost around $5–7. But once you step into a shop in a busy corner of Manhattan, sometimes even the very same brand, the price can jump to $10 or even $15. What creates that difference? This isn't just tourist pricing. It's actually one of the clearest examples of location value and supply and demand at work. First, there's rent cost. A single square foot of commercial space in Manhattan can cost several times more than in Queens. That alone pushes operating costs through the roof. Rent isn't just about the physical space. It's the value of the foot traffic that location generates. A shop downtown can reach thousands of office workers, tourists, and commuters every day, people who consume more and are willing to pay more. Second, there's labor cost. Cost of living is higher in central areas, which means wages must rise accordingly for employees to survive there. Third, there's perceived value. When you buy a sandwich in Manhattan, you're not just paying for food. You're also paying for the experience convenience, a cleaner space, air conditioning, a modern look, or simply the feeling of eating in the heart of New York City. Shops in these areas often invest more in design, packaging, and customer service to elevate that experience. So every sandwich, no matter where it's sold, carries a combination of costs and value that shape its final price. What looks like an unreasonable price gap is, through an economic lens, entirely logical. Next, here's another big business question I know many sandwich shop owners wrestle with. What makes one shop thrive with endless lines of customers, while another right next door selling nearly the same thing struggles and eventually closes? You might immediately think of secret family recipes, perfectly grilled meats, or special house sauce. And yes, flavor is essential. A bad sandwich won't last long. But great taste alone isn't enough. In reality, many delicious sandwich shops still fail. So what's the missing piece? It's business strategy and competitive advantage, branding and marketing. A successful sandwich shop knows how to tell its story and build a brand. A small food cart might not have a fancy storefront, but it may be known for freshness and speed. A well-known deli may thrive not just because of flavor, but because the brand itself has been built over many years. People trust the name, even if the price isn't cheap. Customer service. A friendly staff member, fast service, or even offering contactless payments, all of these shape the customer experience. Operational efficiency. The way ingredients are organized, how the sandwich-making process flows, and efficient staffing, these reduce costs and boost speed, especially during rush hours. Adaptability and innovation. The market is always changing. Shops that listen to customers, test new fillings, update packaging, or integrate delivery apps tend to survive and grow. Market analysis. Knowing exactly who your customers are, what they like, how much they're willing to pay. The most successful shops aren't always the tastiest. They're the ones that understand their customers best. In short, a successful sandwich shop isn't just selling food. It's selling an experience, a brand, and sometimes even a story. They apply core principles of business administration in subtle ways, even in a small food operation. Now, let's go deeper. We're going to dissect a sandwich and explore its economic journey from raw ingredients to the finished product in your hands. Think about what makes up a sandwich. Flour. Where does it come from? From wheat fields maybe in the US, maybe from Canada or Australia. Before it becomes the bread in your sandwich, it goes through farming, harvesting, milling, packaging, transportation, distribution. Every step adds cost and value. Meat, poté, cold cuts. These come from farms, processing plants, refrigerated transport. How many people are involved in this chain? Farmers, factory workers, drivers, and finally, the sandwich makers at the shop. Vegetables, lettuce, peppers, cilantro. These come from local farms and wholesalers. Prices change with seasons and weather. Condiments, fish sauce, sugar, salt, cooking oil, each is its own supply chain. And that's just the ingredients. Labor bread makers need skill to knead dough and bake it with a perfect crust. Sandwich makers need to work fast, assemble ingredients neatly, and sometimes even interact warmly with customers. Every hour of labor has a cost and value. These are essential factors of production. Storefront, as mentioned earlier, location, is one of the biggest economic assets. It creates value through market access. Hidden costs, electricity, water, gas for cooking, advertising, packaging, equipment, depreciation. All of this goes into that final price tag. Every ingredient, every step from wheat in a distant field to the warm sandwich in your hand is a link in the value chain. Each link adds value and adds cost. This is how supply chains, production costs, and added value work together. And now, after peeling back all these layers, we reach a bigger question, and one that may change how you see everything around you. Are you really paying the right price for what you consume every day? It sounds philosophical, doesn't it? But it's actually a very practical economic question. The right price isn't just the number printed on the receipt. It includes many factors. The real value of the product, production cost, ingredients, labor, transportation, all the things we just explored. Perceived value, utility. If you're starving after a long morning, that sandwich has extremely high satisfaction value. If you happen to pass by a shop that smells incredible while you're craving food, the utility goes even higher. This value is personal and subjective. Opportunity cost. By choosing to buy that sandwich, you give up the chance to buy something else, maybe a coffee or a breakfast bowl. Brand and experience. Are you willing to pay extra for a famous shop, better service, or nicer space? This reflects how elastic your demand is for that product. There's no absolute answer because the right price depends on the buyer, the seller, the moment, the situation. But asking this question helps us become smarter consumers, people who appreciate the value behind every product. It reminds us that whether it's a humble sandwich or a pricey smartphone, everything we consume is the result of a complex chain of economic activities, a combination of resources, labor, and ideas. And so from one humble sandwich, we've traveled through a whole range of economic concepts that once seemed dry: supply and demand, production costs, location, value, supply chains, business strategy, perceived value, opportunity cost. These invisible economic threads weave the fabric of our lives. They don't just live inside the pages of business administration, they appear in every breath, every meal, every consumer decision you make. Next time you hold a sandwich in your hand, or any everyday product, try looking at it with a different eye, a more curious eye, one that seeks the economic stories hidden behind it. I believe you'll find the world around you far more interesting and meaningful. Thank you for listening. And don't miss the next episode in this series where we'll continue connecting the unexpected insights from business administration with the most ordinary moments of daily life. See you soon. Welcome to a space where we'll explore big stories together. Stories that may seem scattered at first, but turn out to be connected in ways you'd never expect. Have you ever heard the word economics and instantly pictured squiggly charts, dry numbers, or equations so overwhelming they give you a headache just by looking at them? If the answer is yes, I completely understand how you feel. For the longest time, I thought the same. I used to believe economics was a territory reserved for brilliant minds, for analysts who speak in complex jargon, and that it had nothing to do with our everyday lives. But then as I started digging deeper, I realized something surprising. If we strip away all the complicated layers and abstract concepts at its core, economics isn't about lifeless numbers or emotionless graphs. No economics, believe it or not, is the story of us. It's the story of a mom carefully budgeting every dollar to make sure her child has enough milk. It's the quiet worry of a small coffee shop owner wondering whether they should raise the price of a morning latte, trying to keep loyal customers while dealing with rent that keeps climbing. It's the ambition of a young startup hoping to bring a bold idea to the market despite all the risks. It's a father's sigh as he chooses between buying a new family car or saving that money for his children's education. Economics is about human behavior, about the choices we make every single day, from grabbing a pack of instant noodles to deciding on a lifelong career. It's about the fears we face when the economy slows down and the hope we feel when a new opportunity appears. It's a mirror reflecting our dreams, our ambitions, our mistakes, and the lessons we learn along the way. And to begin unraveling these deeply human stories, we're going to explore a fascinating mental roadmap. One that I believe will open up an entirely new perspective for you. It's the book, Business Administration Theory, Practice, and Application. Volume 1, Business Economics. Sounds pretty academic, right? But don't worry. My goal here isn't to turn you into a brilliant economist in just a few minutes. And let me be clear about one thing. I'm not an economics professor stacked with degrees, nor am I a finance expert handing out million-dollar investment advice. No, I'm simply a storyteller, a curious learner, someone fascinated by the world around us. And most importantly, someone who believes that every big story begins with small human moments. I'm here to walk with you as we uncover the complex but incredibly captivating story of money scarcity choices, and beneath it all, the story of humanity. The goal of this video is to help you, through the lens of empathy, decode the business and consumer decisions we see every day. It helps us understand why a company chooses one path over another, why consumers behave in a certain way, why markets sometimes react in ways no one expects. Not only through logic, but also through heart, by putting ourselves in the shoes of real people with real motivations, real pressures, and real dreams. Are you ready for a shift in the way you see the world around you? Are you ready to recognize that behind every number and every chart lies a story, a life, a dream? I promise you this. After journeying with me in this book, you won't see the world with the same eyes again. You'll notice the invisible threads connecting everything you'll understand, and the motivations behind decisions big and small. From the corner grocery store to the global stock market. And you'll realize that economics isn't nearly as dry as you once thought. It's alive, vibrant, and deeply human. Let's begin. Now we're going to dive into Chapter 1 of the classic book, Business Administration Theory, Practice, and Application. Follow 1 Business Economics, a journey straight into the roots of every economic problem, every choice, and every trade-off we face each day. Our topic is scarcity and choice, the fundamental tragedy behind every decision. You know, even the wealthiest people on the planet cannot have everything. No matter how much money you have, you'll always face one undeniable truth. Resources are limited while human desires are unlimited. And that is scarcity, the core concept, the starting point of all economics. Let's imagine something together for a moment. The story of David and Emily's family. Summer is just around the corner. David and Emily live with their 2 kids in a small apartment in the city. The temperature outside climbs day by day, and inside the apartment, it feels like an oven, especially at night. Their 2 little ones keep crying because of the heat, and both parents toss and turn, unable to sleep. This summer, David and Emily have 2 big dreams. The first dream: a beach trip. It's been forever since the whole family had a real vacation. Blue ocean, soft sand, warm sunshine, the sound of waves. A real getaway would help everyone relax, reconnect, and create precious memories. The total cost for this trip would be around $900. The second dream: an air conditioner for the living room and a misting fan for the bedroom. The heat is unbearable. With AC, the whole family could finally enjoy cool, comfortable air, sleep better, and work more efficiently. The cost of buying and installing both items also comes out to about $900. So what's the problem David and Emily's summer savings amount to? $900. See that their resources are limited, but their wants come in twos, and both are perfectly reasonable. And that's where the tragedy begins. Not a tragedy in the dramatic sense, but the tragedy of trade-offs and choices. They have to make a decision: take the trip or buy the AC. They can't have both. When they choose one, they must give up the other. Opportunity cost: what you truly lose when you make a choice. When David and Emily sit down to weigh their options, they're not just thinking about the $900 they'll spend. They're thinking about opportunity cost. So what is opportunity cost? Simply put, it's the value of the best alternative you give up when you make a decision. If David and Emily decide to buy the air conditioner, what they truly lose isn't the money they lose, the beach trip. They lose the laughter, the family bonding, the unforgettable moments they could have created. That is the opportunity cost of having a cool, comfortable home. On the other hand, if they choose the beach trip, what's the opportunity cost? It's the comfort of cool nights at home. It's better sleep for the whole family. It's a refreshing, breathable home to return to after long days of work. You see, opportunity cost isn't just about money. It can be time, energy, joy, experiences, or any benefit you sacrifice when choosing one thing over another. Economists like to say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every choice has a price. And that price is the opportunity cost. Businesses choose. 2. Invest in marketing or upgrade the product. Scarcity doesn't just affect individuals or families. It shapes entire economies, governments, and especially businesses. Imagine Company XYZ, a growing tech startup. They've just secured funding and now have $400,000 to invest in their next phase. It may sound like a lot, but compared to their ambitions, it's still limited. They have 2 major choices. 1. Heavily invest in marketing. Spend the entire $400,000 on large-scale advertising campaigns, expanding their reach, acquiring millions of new potential customers, and rapidly increasing market share. 2. Invest in product research and development, R&D. Use the $400,000 to improve their existing product, add breakthrough features, enhance user experience, and build something far superior to competitors. Just like David and Emily, XYZ cannot fully commit to both with the same pot of money. They must decide. If they choose marketing, what's their opportunity cost? It's the innovative features they won't develop. It's the smoother user experience they'll miss out on. It's the risk that current customers may leave because the product doesn't improve. If they choose to upgrade the product, they might miss the chance to expand their market quickly and could allow competitors to capture the spotlight. The opportunity cost here is the growth in users and brand recognition they could have achieved. Every business decision, from choosing suppliers, investing in machinery, hiring talent, expanding markets, or developing new products, is shaped by scarcity and opportunity cost. Successful businesses are the ones that can identify and optimize these trade-offs to reach their goals. Personal lesson: managing time and money is really about managing scarcity. Now let's turn back to ourselves. You might be wondering, so how does this relate to my daily life? A lot more than you think. You may have 2 free hours in the evening. Will you spend them watching a movie for relaxation, reading a professional book, or learning a new skill online? Each choice brings a benefit, and choosing one means losing the potential benefits of the others. Time, the most precious, most limited resource we all have, is also scarce. Maybe you received a $40 bonus. Will you use it to buy something you've wanted for a while, save it for a future goal, or invest it in an online course to improve your skills? This too is a question of scarcity and choice. Even watching this video is a choice. You chose to spend your time learning instead of doing something else. And I hope your opportunity cost is worth it. Managing your time, your money, your energy is essentially managing scarcity. When you understand that everything has limits, you start making decisions more intentionally and strategically. You learn how to prioritize, how to trade off, and how to maximize value from the resources you have. So you see, scarcity isn't just a dry economic term in textbooks. It's the essence of life. It's the underlying tragedy that forces every person, every family, and every business to face trade-offs and opportunity costs hidden in every corner of existence. Accepting this truth doesn't make life more pessimistic. In fact, it empowers us to make wiser decisions. When you realize that every choice has a price, you begin evaluating things more carefully. And from there, you build a life and a business that are more efficient, intentional, and meaningful. In the next chapter, we'll dig deeper into how societies organize themselves to deal with scarcity through different economic systems. If you found this video helpful and want to continue this journey through economics with me, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Welcome to Chapter 2 of our journey into the world of business, where we'll pull back the curtain on one of the biggest forces shaping our daily lives: supply and demand. Have you ever wondered why the cup of coffee you buy today costs something completely different at another shop? Or why airline ticket prices swing wildly cheap one moment, shockingly expensive the next? Is there some invisible hand controlling it all? Well, there is an invisible hand, or more accurately, an invisible waltz, constantly swirling and shifting on the dance floor of the market. And the two dancers in this endless performance are none other than supply and demand. I want you to picture it like this. Demand. Think of demand as an energetic, passionate person who always wants more experiences, more products, more satisfaction. Demand represents our desires as consumers. Demand wants to buy as much as possible for the lowest price possible. The cheaper something is, the more demand is drawn to it. And supply. This is demand's partner. Supply consists of producers, sellers, and businesses ready to bring goods and services to the table. But supply wants the opposite: to sell as much as possible for the highest price possible to earn the best profit. The higher the price, the more motivated supply is to produce. These two dancers seem at odds, but they must always dance together. They push and pull, spin and glide, and every one of their movements forms a price, the price you and I pay for everything from our morning coffee to the smartphone in our hands. Part 1. When demand overheats. The secret behind the lemon shake-up craze. Do you remember, or maybe even joined in the recent lemon shake-up craze that swept through cafes and social media? Yes, that was a perfect example of demand exceeding supply. In just a short time, lemon shake-up suddenly became the drink everyone wanted. Teens, office workers, influencers, everyone wanted to try it. Everyone wanted that Instagram shot. Stands and shops offering it popped up everywhere, yet they still couldn't keep up. Demand at that moment was like a never-ending line of excited customers. People were willing to wait a full hour, even pay more than usual, just to taste it and stay on trend. You see, when demand explodes suddenly and intensely, but supply hasn't yet caught up, hasn't expanded production or opened more locations, the inevitable happens. Prices skyrocket. Shop owners could sell without discounts. They could even raise prices and still have lines out the door. That was the moment when demand completely took the lead in the dance, forcing supply to follow its frantic rhythm. But just like every trend, this fever had its peak and decline. When too many sellers jumped in, when supply began matching or even exceeding demand, the story changed. But that's for later. Part 2. Mask prices. During the pandemic, when the market reveals its survival instinct, none of us will ever forget the early stage of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a dramatic, real-world example of supply and demand under extreme pressure. As soon as news of the virus spread, what happened? People rushed to buy masks. Demand wasn't just desire, it was survival instinct. Millions of people around the world all needed masks at the same time. Demand skyrocketed at a pace no chart could capture. Meanwhile, supply, the mask manufacturers, couldn't dance fast enough to match. They needed time to add shifts, secure materials, and expand production lines. The result, mask prices shot up 5x, 10x, even dozens of times higher. Ordinary disposable masks became blue gold. Demand had dragged supply completely off rhythm. But after a while, what happened? Factories ramped up. New companies entered the market. Supply caught up and then exceeded demand. And when the pandemic came under control and people had enough masks, sometimes more than enough, demand dropped. Supply suddenly had too much energy, no partner to dance with. And inevitably, mask prices cooled, returning to normal, even cheaper than before in some cases. This was a perfect demonstration that supply and demand aren't static forces. They are dynamic dancers, constantly reacting, shifting, and shaping the price movements we observe. Part 3. Market equilibrium. The moment when both sides agree. In this endless dance, there is one special moment when both dancers, supply and demand, are perfectly in sync. This moment is called market equilibrium. Picture this. Demand wants to buy a lot at a low price. Supply wants to sell a lot at a high price. Equilibrium is the price and quantity at which the amount buyers are willing and able to purchase equals the amount sellers are willing and able to supply. This is the golden moment, the true fair deal. At this price, there is no sold-out panic shortage and nobody buying anxiety surplus. The market works smoothly. At equilibrium, demand feels okay. This is a reasonable price, and I can get what I need. Supply feels great. I can sell everything I produced at a profit that makes sense. Both dancers smile. The waltz flows beautifully. But as I said, the dance never stands still. Outside forces, pandemic news, new trends, technology constantly disrupt the rhythm, pulling supply or demand away from equilibrium. And that's when prices change. Part 4. Predicting the future. What businesses do when they know demand will rise. If supply and demand are the dancers, then businesses are the choreographers trying to predict demand's next move and adjust supply accordingly. Think about big annual events. Holiday season candy, beverage, clothing, and gift companies don't wait until demand explodes in December. They know it's coming. Months ahead, they increase production, build inventory, plan marketing campaigns, and prepare for the surge. Summer travel season, airlines, hotels, and travel agencies all know vacation demand will spike. They increase flights, open more rooms, and launch early bird promotions to activate and get ahead of the demand wave. Black Friday and major sale events. E-commerce platforms and brands know shopping demand will skyrocket. They prepare massive discount codes, huge delivery teams, and powerful servers to make sure supply doesn't collapse under pressure. This is where business management science shines. Companies use data, market research, and consumer behavior analysis to forecast demand trends. Then they adjust production, pricing, and marketing to stay close to equilibrium or gain an advantage when demand shifts. Businesses don't want to react passively in this dance. They want to lead it, or at least anticipate each movement. You see, what Adam Smith called the invisible hand is essentially this non-stop waltz between supply and demand. From a cup of coffee to a protective mask to an entire shopping season, everything falls under the influence of these two forces. Understanding supply and demand doesn't just help us make sense of price changes. It helps us understand how the market truly functions and how businesses work endlessly to adapt to its ever-changing rhythm. This is a foundational lesson, a deep insight into the nature of market economies. Supply and demand aren't abstract textbook concepts. They are the breath and heartbeat of every business activity. So if supply and demand are the two dancers shaping prices, what happens when external forces, government policies, regulations, or interventions step onto the dance floor? We'll explore that in Chapter 3. Awesome. Hello, my friends, my loyal companions here on our YouTube channel. Welcome to a brand new chapter where we're going to break down things that seem totally ordinary in our daily lives, but actually hide deep secrets about human psychology and how it shapes the world of business. If in the previous chapters we skimmed through big macroeconomic concepts or dissected dry market structures, but still pretty interesting. Right then today, we're diving into a space that's just as fascinating and honestly way more human. Chapter 3: Consumer Psychology. The battle inside the customer's mind. Our goal today is simple: to explore the subtle psychological, emotional, and social forces that shape our buying decisions far beyond the basic logic of "it's cheap, so I'll buy it" that we usually assume. It may sound academic, but trust me, it's a lot closer to your life than you think. Grab a drink, get comfy, and let's explore how our brain actually behaves when it's faced with a sea of choices. 1. The decoy effect. Why you always pick the medium or the large size. Have you ever stood in front of the popcorn or drink counter at a movie theater? Or maybe when you were choosing a mobile data plan or a software subscription. Think back for a second. Have you seen options laid out something like this? Small $5.00, medium $7, large $7.50. Be honest with me, which one would you pick? Chances are you'd go for the large. Only 50 cents more, and I get way more than the medium. That little voice in your head, right? Congratulations. You just walked straight into the trap of the decoy effect. In reality, businesses often have zero intention of selling you that medium size for $7. That price point, the medium option, exists mainly to do one thing: make the large look like a ridiculously good deal. The medium is the decoy, an unattractive option placed there specifically to highlight the value of another option. If there were only two options, small at $5 and large at $7.50, you might hesitate. A $2.50 difference is significant, and you might choose the small to save money. But once that third option, the medium, shows up in the middle, the whole picture changes. Suddenly, $7.50 for the large feels perfectly reasonable, because it's just 50 cents more than the medium, and you're getting so much more. I've personally fallen into this trap more times than I can count. I go to buy coffee, see medium for $7, and large for $7.50 and immediately think, wait, just 50 cents more for the large, why not? And I completely forget that I originally only wanted the smallest size. Once we understand this effect, we realize something important. Businesses don't just sell products, they sell comparisons. They shape how we perceive value by offering options that seem random, but are actually carefully designed pieces in a psychological strategy game. That's a powerful lesson for both consumers and business owners. As a buyer, be wary of decoy options. As a seller, learn how to use them subtly to guide customers toward your main product. 2. The power of brand. What makes people pay more? Just for a logo. Let's move to another question. What makes you willing to pay the price of a high-end iPhone, say $900, when an Android phone with similar specs costs around $450? Or why are you okay spending $5 on a Starbucks coffee when you could get a perfectly good cup from a local cafe for $2? Is it really just the hardware, the camera, or the taste? Or is it something invisible but incredibly powerful? The answer lies in the power of branding. A brand is not just a name or a logo. It's a promise. It's a bundle of values. It's an experience. Sometimes it even becomes part of our personal identity. Trust and quality. When you buy from big brands like Apple, Samsung, or Coca-Cola, you're buying trust. You're paying for the belief that the product will be high-quality, innovative, and backed by solid customer service. You feel that what you get will be worth the price or more. Status and self-expression. Carrying a Louis Vuitton bag, driving a Mercedes, or wearing a Rolex isn't just about owning luxury items. These are symbols of status, success, and lifestyle. Owning them helps us express ourselves, define our style, and shape how others see us. Emotion and experience. Remember the feeling of unboxing a brand new iPhone, or the familiar warmth of walking into a Starbucks anywhere in the world. Those experiences, carefully crafted by the brand, create emotional bonds. Sometimes we're not just buying coffee. We're buying the feeling of sitting in Starbucks with that iconic green logo on the cup, jazz playing softly in the background, and a cozy workspace around us. Branding transforms a physical product into a story, an experience, a piece of culture. That's why businesses pour massive amounts of money and effort into building and protecting their brands. A strong enough brand can overcome price barriers, create loyal customers, and turn ordinary buyers into passionate fans. So as consumers, we should ask ourselves, am I paying for the actual functional value of this product? Or am I paying for the story and emotions that come with the brand? And for managers and business owners, this is a reminder. Brand building isn't just an expense, it's a strategic investment that can generate long-term, sustainable returns. 3. Fear of missing out, FOMO, and the trap of limited time offers. Do you find yourself easily pulled into deals like 24 hours, only limited stock, or today only exclusive discount? Have you ever bought something you didn't really need, just because a flash sale timer was ticking down on the screen? If your answer is yes, then you felt one of the strongest psychological forces of the digital age, fear of missing out, FOMO. FOMO isn't just a social media phenomenon where we're scared of missing events, news, or experiences our friends are having. In business, FOMO is used very skillfully by marketers to push purchasing decisions. It's rooted in a deeper psychological principle, loss aversion. We tend to feel the pain of losing something more intensely than the joy of gaining something of equal value. When a promotion is labeled limited time only or limited quantity, it triggers the fear that we're about to lose out on a great deal, lose the feeling of winning, or end up worse off than people who acted faster. Imagine you're torn between two shirts. Then you see an ad: flash sale on shirt A, 50% off only for the next 2 hours. Suddenly, shirt A becomes way more appealing. Not because you truly need it more, but because you don't want to miss this rare discount. The time pressure pushes you to decide quickly, often emotionally, before your rational brain fully kicks in. Businesses use FOMO in a lot of ways. Countdown timers, seeing time slip away in real time, is a powerful visual nudge. Only X left in stock creates a sense of scarcity and urgency. Exclusive offer for members only makes people feel special while also creating FOMO for those on the outside. Honestly, I've bought books I didn't really need just because I saw something like only 30 minutes left for free shipping on Amazon. Yes, that's a very real confession. As smart consumers, we need to recognize these psychological tactics so we don't fall into impulsive buying decisions. For businesses, FOMO is a double-edged sword. Used correctly. It's an incredibly powerful sales tool. Used excessively or dishonestly, it can damage trust. The key is to use it responsibly and ethically, so it adds real value rather than manipulating people unfairly. 4. Diminishing marginal utility. Why the second slice of pizza isn't as good as the first. Do you remember that feeling when you bite into the first slice of pizza, absolute heaven? Gooey cheese, crispy crust, rich tomato sauce, it's an explosion of flavor. The second slice is still good, but maybe not quite as magical as the first. By the third slice, you're starting to feel full. By the fourth or fifth, you might actually feel a bit uncomfortable. This is a classic example of the law of diminishing marginal utility in economics. Simply put, the more of something you consume, the less extra satisfaction utility you get from each additional unit. First slice gives you the highest marginal utility, solves your hunger, and satisfies your craving. Second slice, still enjoyable, but you're less hungry now. Third, fourth, fifth slice. The added satisfaction keeps dropping until you eventually hit the point where extra slices give you negative utility. You feel bloated or regretful. This principle goes way beyond food. Clothing. The first jacket you buy when your closet is empty brings huge value. The 20th jacket in an already packed closet, not so much. Music. Listening to your favorite song once is great. Listening to it 100 times in a row? Probably not. Money. The first $500 you earn when you're broke means a lot. But if you're already a millionaire, an extra $500 doesn't change your life much. So how do businesses use this principle? They understand that customers get less value from each additional unit, so they offer buffets. All you can eat for a fixed price. They know after a few plates your marginal utility drops, and you physically can't eat that much more. Run buy one, get one in bulk discounts. Encourage you to buy more. But they also know not to push customers past the point where they feel regret. Use tiered pricing. For example, data plans of 5 gigas, 10 gigas, 20 gigas. The bigger the plan, the cheaper the price per GB. But the extra GBs bring less added value once you already have enough. Understanding diminishing marginal utility helps us consume more wisely and avoid wasting money on things that don't actually add much value to our lives. For business leaders, it's critical for designing product bundles, service packages, and pricing strategies that maximize total value for customers while still protecting profitability. So we've just traveled through 4 fascinating aspects of consumer psychology. From sneaky decoy options to the power of a simple logo, to the fear of missing out to the pizza slice that eventually stops being satisfying. It all shows one big truth. Our buying decisions aren't just basic math problems of price and value. They're complex symphonies of emotion perception and invisible social influence. The battle inside the customer's mind is a challenging but incredibly captivating arena. As consumers, we should learn to spot these psychological traps so we can make smarter choices and avoid being swept away by momentary emotions. As managers and business owners, understanding these psychological principles is the key to building strategies that are not only effective, but also truly connect with customers, creating lasting value and long-term relationships. Thank you for listening and for sticking with me through this chapter. I hope these insights not only help you better understand how the business world works, but also shine a light on how we ourselves make decisions every single day. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your familiar host, and today we're going to continue our journey into the fascinating world of business through the book Business Administration Theory, Practice, and Application. Volume 1, Business Economics. In Chapter 3, we took a bird's-eye view of the macroeconomic landscape, things like GDP and inflation, that may seem dry, but actually shape the lives of every one of us. Now let's zoom the lens in, go deeper into a smaller, more concrete world that's no less complex and full of quiet struggles. Chapter 4. Behind the counter. The seller's side of the story. Have you ever wondered what kind of mental math and tough decisions sit behind every sandwich, every cup of coffee, or every item you buy? Today we're going to pull back that curtain and explore different kinds of costs and the pressure to maximize profit and the everyday production decisions business owners have to make. Get ready, because this world might change the way you see everything around you. 1. Fixed costs and variable costs, the story of a small coffee shop. Let's start with something familiar. A little coffee shop called Quiet Corner Cafe, owned by Sarah. It's a cozy, charming place, with the smell of fresh coffee, old wooden tables, and warm yellow lights. Sarah is the owner, the barista, the server, and sometimes even the unofficial therapist for her customers. Every month, whether the shop is packed or completely empty, Sarah still has to face a set of bills she simply cannot escape. There's the rent, the fixed paycheck for the college student who works evenings, the monthly payment on the espresso machine she bought on installment, and the base electricity and water bills. Whether she sells 5 cups today or 0 cups tomorrow, those costs are still sitting there, waiting to be paid. These are called fixed costs. They don't change with the number of drinks she sells. In reality, this is the constant worry for a lot of small business owners. On days when it pours rain non-stop, the streets are empty and customers are nowhere to be seen. Sarah still finds herself watching the clock tick toward the end of the month, stressing about rent and payroll. That feeling is something not everyone understands. But when a customer walks in and orders an espresso or a latte, the story shifts. To make each drink, Sarah needs coffee beans, milk, sugar, a paper cup, if it's to go, maybe a straw or lid. The more she sells, the more ingredients she has to buy. These expenses are called variable costs because they vary with the number of products made and sold. If she sells 10 cups, she uses X amount of ingredients. If she sells 100 cups, she uses 10X. So you see, even a small coffee shop has to wrestle with the balance between fixed costs, the unchanging burden, and variable costs, the extra that rises and falls with business activity. Understanding these two types of costs is the first step any business needs in order to set prices, forecast profit, and most importantly, make production decisions. If Sarah knows exactly how much her fixed costs are and how much variable cost she spends per cup of coffee, she can figure out how many cups she needs to sell just to break even and how many cups she needs to sell to actually make a profit. It sounds simple, but this is the map every business owner needs to navigate. 2. Large-scale production. When does the more you make, the cheaper it gets actually work? From Sarah's little cafe, let's zoom out to giant factories where millions of products are made every day. Have you ever wondered why a smartphone, a branded t-shirt, or even a car can be sold at a relatively affordable price compared to what it would cost if you tried to have just one custom made? The answer lies in economies of scale. Yes, sometimes the more you make, the cheaper it gets. But why? Spreading out fixed costs. Think back to Sarah's fixed costs, rent, equipment, base salaries. In a big factory, the cost of a production line, building the plant, or hiring a skilled engineering team is huge. But when that line churns out millions of units, those massive fixed costs get spread out over each product. One smartphone coming out of that factory only has to carry a tiny fraction of the building and equipment cost. If you tried to build just one phone in your garage, you'd have to shoulder the full cost of tool space and setup yourself. Buying in bulk. Large businesses can negotiate with suppliers to get raw materials at major discounts. Buying a whole shipment of chips or components is much cheaper per unit than buying a handful at a time. Specialization. In large-scale production, each worker can specialize in one small step. This speeds up work, reduces mistakes, and boosts overall productivity. Picture a car assembly plant where one person only tightens a specific set of bolts, another only installs doors, another only works on the dashboard, instead of one person having to build a whole car from scratch. Technology and automation scale allows businesses to invest in advanced technology robots and automated systems that reduce human labor and streamline processes. So when you hold a high-tech product at a reasonable price, remember behind it is an enormous production system where economies of scale are in full force. That's why big corporations can compete aggressively on price and sometimes create serious barriers for small businesses trying to enter the market. However, don't forget that the more you make, the cheaper it gets doesn't hold forever. Sometimes when a business grows too large, it runs into economies of scale. That's when management becomes complicated, the organization gets bloated, communication slows down, operating costs rise, or product quality slips because of weak control. The lesson is clear: everything has limits, even scale. 3. From production to profit. How do businesses decide how much is enough? Now that we understand different types of costs and the benefits of large-scale production, we come to the big question every business has to answer. How much should we produce to maximize profit? It sounds dry, but this is the central struggle, the daily mental chess game for any business owner. The ultimate goal of most businesses is profit maximization. That doesn't just mean selling a lot. It means making as much money as possible after covering all costs. To do that, a business has to consider the relationship between revenue and costs. Revenue comes from selling products. The more you sell at a given price, the higher your revenue. Costs. We've already talked about fixed and variable costs. The more you produce, the more your variable costs rise. So where's the key? A business will keep producing and selling as long as the extra cost of making one more unit marginal cost is less than or equal to the extra revenue from selling that unit marginal revenue. That might sound complex, so let's simplify. Sarah will keep making more cups of coffee as long as each additional cup still brings in some net profit. The moment making one more cup costs her more than she earns from it, for example. Because ingredients get more expensive, she's too exhausted and keeps making mistakes, or there just aren't any more customers. That's the point where she should stop. That point is where her profit is maximized. But production decisions aren't based only on the internal numbers. They're also shaped by many outside factors. Market demand. Do customers actually want what you're selling? At what price? Competitors' prices. What are others charging? Are they offering discounts or promotions? Technology and production capacity. Do you have enough equipment and staff to produce the quantity you're aiming for? Government policies, taxes, environmental regulations, labor laws, and more. So figuring out how much is enough is an ongoing process of analysis, forecasting, adjustment, and sometimes taking calculated risks. There is no one-size-fits-all formula that works for every business in every situation. That's where the art and science of business management truly shows up. 4. Risk and failure. Not every business decision is the right one. By now, you probably have a sense of how complex things are behind every counter and inside every factory. But the world of business is not a smooth, rose-covered path. The harsh reality is not every decision is a good one, and risk and failure are unavoidable. Remember Blockbuster, the video rental giant that once dominated the market? They had the chance to buy Netflix for a low price. but past believing their traditional model was unbeatable. We all know how that turned out. Netflix is now a streaming giant, while Blockbuster is basically a case study in what not to do. Or Nokia, once the king of mobile phones, missed the smartphone revolution. They were too confident in their own technology and operating system and didn't adapt quickly enough to market changes. These stories aren't just history lessons. They're reminders that every decision, no matter how carefully analyzed, comes with risk. Markets change. Customer needs can shift quickly. A hot product today might be obsolete tomorrow. New competitors appear. A new player with a disruptive idea, better tech, or a bold pricing strategy can flip the entire market. Unexpected crises hit: pandemics, natural disasters, global economic downturns. Any of these can hit without warning and freeze business operations. Internal mistakes happen. Misjudging costs, overestimating revenue, investing in the wrong technology, or poor leadership decisions can all lead to serious trouble. Failure is not always the end. More often, it's a very expensive lesson. The businesses that survive are the ones that learn from their mistakes, adapt quickly, and keep innovating. It takes courage to experiment, humility to admit you were wrong, and resilience to get back up after a fall. That's why business management isn't just about numbers and charts. It's about people instincts, vision, and grit. So through Chapter 4, Behind the Counter, the seller's side of the story, we've taken a look at a world full of challenges and tough choices. From telling apart fixed and variable costs in a tiny coffee shop, to the power of large-scale production, to the way businesses struggle to maximize profits, and finally, to facing risk and failure. Each piece is part of the bigger picture. The book, Business Administration Theory, Practice, and Application. Volume 1. Business economics has helped us peek into the inner workings of a business and understand that getting a product into a customer's hands is the result of a complex journey full of careful calculations and a bit of luck. I believe that from now on, every time you walk into a store or use a product, you won't just see the item itself. You'll also picture the entire world of decisions, effort, and unseen struggles standing quietly behind the counter. Remember, knowledge is the key that helps us understand the world around us more clearly. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the exciting content coming next. In Chapter 5, we'll move on to another aspect of economics, one that promises even more surprises ahead. Have you ever wondered why the price of a bunch of vegetables at the farmer's market is so different from the price of a bottle of soda at the supermarket, or why your electricity and water bills aren't something you can negotiate the way you might haggle over the price of a new gadget? It might seem random, but in reality, everything is shaped by very clear rules of the game, different business playing fields where we are the players, or more accurately, the audience, and often the ones directly affected. Today we're going to step into Chapter 5 of the book, Business Administration Theory, Practice, and Application. Volume 1. Business Economics, titled The Business Arena. From Monopoly to Perfect Competition. Our goal is to break down different types of markets as different playing fields with their own rules so we can understand how they affect prices, product quality, and most importantly, your choices as a consumer. Let's take a walk around these arenas together. 1. The arena of perfect competition, when everyone accepts the market price. Imagine a Saturday morning when you stop by your local farmer's market to buy groceries. You walk into the produce section. In front of you are dozens of vendors selling lettuce, spinach, potatoes, tomatoes. Everything looks fresh and similar. You ask the price from vendor A, then stroll over and ask vendor B. Almost certainly the prices won't differ by much. And if they do, you only need to take a few steps to find someone else offering a better deal. This is a classic example of a perfectly competitive market. It sounds almost ideal, doesn't it? What are its key features? Lots of buyers and sellers. No single buyer or seller is big enough to influence the market price. Homogeneous products. A bunch of spinach is basically a bunch of spinach. There's no strong brand difference or huge quality gap. Perfect information. Buyers and sellers have access to full information about prices and quality. Easy entry and exit. Anyone can show up and sell produce, and anyone can decide to stop whenever they want. In this arena, sellers don't really get to set prices. They are price takers. Prices are determined by overall supply and demand. The biggest benefit for you, the consumer, is extremely competitive prices and fairly stable quality. If someone tries to sell low-quality goods or charge too much, customers simply move on. This is the arena where you benefit the most because everything is transparent and relatively fair. 2. The monopoly arena, when only one player sets the rules. But the world isn't always that perfect. Now let's move to a completely different arena: monopoly. A monopoly is like a game where there is only one player who holds all the power and sets all the rules. A typical example is basic utilities like electricity and tap water in most countries. You can't choose one company for electricity and another for water. Usually there is only one provider serving your area. Key characteristics of a monopoly market. A single seller, one company, is the only source of a particular product or service. Unique product with no close substitutes. You can't replace electricity with something else to run your lights, or tap water with some other convenient, safe, and constant source for everyday use. Very high barriers to entry. To build a nationwide power grid or water system, you need enormous capital complex technology, and usually government approval. In this arena, the monopolist is a price maker. They have significant power to control both prices and output. This can lead to higher prices and slower improvements in quality because there's no competitive pressure and you have no alternative. To protect consumers, governments often step in to regulate prices or oversee the operations of these natural monopolies. 3. The arena of monopolistic competition. The battle of brands. Now let's move to the type of market you probably encounter most often in daily life: monopolistic competition. This is an interesting blend. There are many players, but each one tries to build a mini monopoly for themselves. Think about standing in front of the shampoo aisle or the soft drink section in a big supermarket. There are dozens, even hundreds of choices. Shampoo X for dry hair, shampoo Y for oily hair, soda Z with cola flavor, soda T with lemon flavor. That's the arena of monopolistic competition. Its main features. Many sellers like perfect competition. There are lots of companies involved. Product differentiation. This is the key. Products are not identical. Companies try to make their products stand out through design, quality, brand packaging, extra services, or even the image and lifestyle they represent. Relatively easy entry and exit. It's not impossible for a new shampoo or beverage brand to launch and join the market. In this arena, each company has a small monopoly over its own distinct product. For example, Coca-Cola has a monopoly over the Coca-Cola brand, even though there are plenty of other cola drinks. They invest heavily in advertising, catchy packaging, clever marketing campaigns, and emotional brand stories. What's the goal? To make you feel that their product is different, special compared to dozens of similar options. Even if in terms of basic ingredients or technology, the differences aren't that huge. You're willing to pay a slightly higher price for that difference because it speaks to your tastes and your personal preferences. What's the benefit for consumers? You get tons of choices. Companies constantly innovate and differentiate to win your attention, upgrading products and adding features. The trade-off is that prices may be higher than in a perfectly competitive market because you're also paying for that difference and for the massive marketing budgets behind those brands. 4. Oligopoly, the arena of a few giants. Before we get to the final impact on you, we have to talk about one more important arena: oligopoly. This is like a league where only a few big teams dominate. Think about industries like telecommunications, airlines, or automobiles. In many countries, only a handful of big players control most of the market. For example, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile in telecom, or airlines like Delta American Airlines and United in aviation. Key characteristics: few sellers. A small number of large companies hold a major share of the market. Products may be homogeneous or differentiated. Basic mobile phone service is similar, but data plans, bundles, and added services differ. High barriers to entry. You need huge capital, advanced technology, and a strong brand to compete with these giants. In this arena, every company must carefully consider how its competitors will react. If one company cuts prices, others may follow to avoid losing customers, leading to a price war. On the other hand, they might quietly understand each other and keep prices high, which benefits them all. For consumers, oligopolies mean fewer choices than monopolistic competition, but potentially strong innovation because big players battle each other with better tech, improved services, and loyalty programs to keep customers. However, the risk of them colluding formally or informally to keep prices high is real, which is why antitrust authorities keep a close eye on these markets. WealthRise. What it means for you: are you winning or losing in these arenas? So in each of these arenas, are you the consumer winning or losing? Perfect competition like the vegetable market. You benefit the most. Prices are pushed down to the lowest sustainable level due to intense competition, and quality can't be too low because customers will immediately switch to another seller. This is the ideal arena for buyers. Monopoly like electricity and water. You're often at a disadvantage. Prices are higher, you have no alternatives, and service quality may not improve quickly. Here, government regulation is crucial to protect you. Monopolistic competition, shampoo, soft drinks, snacks. You enjoy lots of choices and benefit from constant innovation and variety. But you also pay part of the bill for marketing and branding, so prices can be a bit higher than in a perfectly competitive market. Oligopoly, telecom, airlines, auto. You have fewer choices than in monopolistic competition, but there's still some competition in quality technology and service. Prices may not be the lowest possible, but they're usually not as high as in a pure monopoly. Still, the risk of big players gaming the system together is always there. Understanding these business arenas doesn't just help you become a smarter consumer. It helps you see the bigger economic picture more clearly. From now on, when you shop or use a service, you'll know which arena you're standing in and how its rules affect your wallet and your rights. Mastering these types of markets is the first step to becoming not just a passive spectator, but a smart player who knows how to protect yourself and take advantage of opportunities in this constantly shifting business world. Thank you for joining me in Chapter 5. Remember, knowledge is power, and in business, it's the power to make the wisest decisions. Now let's turn to a chapter that, to be completely honest, most Americans both love and know they need, yet still grumble about every time it comes up. This is Chapter 6, The Hand of Government, the referee of the game. In the U.S., whenever people talk about the free market economy, they often bring up Adam Smith's invisible hand, the idea that supply and demand balance themselves in a nearly magical way. But the truth is, there's another hand that's far more visible, far more real, and sometimes a bit too involved: the hand of the federal government. Picture the economy as a massive football field. Who sets the size of the goalposts? Who decides the rules of the game? Who blows the whistle when someone commits a foul? The government. They build the legal foundation, protect property rights, make sure contracts are enforceable. Without these foundations, no one would invest. No one would open a business because nothing would be guaranteed. But the U.S. government doesn't stop at just keeping order. They intervene far more deeply than people realize, and often those decisions affect your wallet and your behavior in ways you don't even notice. 1. Taxes, the thing everyone complains about, but no one can live without. When you mention taxes, an American sighing is practically a reflex. Income tax, sales tax, property tax, gasoline tax, the list goes on. On one hand, taxes fund everything public: highways, public schools, Social Security, the military, public health. But in the U.S., taxes are also a tool for shaping behavior. Why is the cigarette tax in states like New York over $5 per pack? Why is liquor taxed more heavily than beer? Why does the federal government offer a $7,500 tax credit for electric vehicles? Simple taxes are the stick and the carrot. Want to reduce smoking? Raise the tax. Want to encourage clean energy? Offer tax breaks and refunds. Want to help first-time home buyers? Give mortgage interest deductions. Taxes don't just take money. Taxes send a message: do more of this, do less of that. 2. Subsidies, when the government opens its wallet to push something good. In the U.S., if taxes are taking money, subsidies are giving money. And the federal government subsidizes far more than most people think. Tens of billions of dollars in agricultural subsidies through the Farm Bill. Research funding for clean energy companies. Technology development support for strategic sectors like AI and semiconductor manufacturing, the CHIPS Act. Tuition assistance and housing subsidies for low-income families. Why? Because the market sometimes lacks the incentive to develop crucial industries. No subsidies, few businesses enter the field. The country falls behind. Subsidies are the government's way of backing key industries. 3. Antitrust laws, so nobody gets to play Monopoly alone. Have you ever played Monopoly? Imagine one player owning all the railroads, all the hotels, all the properties, and you pay them every time you move. That's Monopoly. The U.S. has seen this play out in real life. Northern Standard Oil was broken apart. AT&T was split in 1982. Today, big tech, Google, Amazon, Meta are constantly facing antitrust lawsuits. When a company gets too big, it can set sky-high prices, crush competitors, slow down innovation, pass the harm onto consumers. Antitrust laws exist to protect a fair playing field. 4. Negative externalities, when the market causes harm and can't fix itself. This is when the invisible hand slips out of a place. A classic American example: a factory emits pollution that worsens air quality in nearby communities, causing asthma in kids and lowering quality of life. Who pays for that damage? Not the factory. The community does. That's a negative externality. And this is when government intervention becomes necessary. EPA emission standards. Carbon taxes, requiring companies to buy pollution permits. Maytaus, fines that can reach tens of millions of dollars. The goal forces companies to internalize the costs they create instead of pushing them onto society. Wrapping it up, from taxes to subsidies, from antitrust enforcement to managing externalities, everything points to one truth: the U.S. government is not a bystander. It is the referee, the rule setter, and sometimes the one who must fix the market's mistakes. An economy without government regulation would be like a football game without a referee: chaotic, unfair, and easy to manipulate. Thank you for following along. I hope this chapter helped you see more clearly the critical role government plays in the American economy. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to WealthRise Stories, and welcome to another step on our journey through business administration theory, practice, and application. A truly valuable guide to understanding the world of business. If in previous chapters we've dived deep into the smaller corners of the economy, from the behavior of individual consumers to the decisions of a single business to how a specific market operates. In other words, we've been exploring this vast ocean from the coral reefs and tiny fish near the shore. Then today, I'd like to invite you to sail out into open water. We're going to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the giant waves and powerful currents that can push your boat farther than you imagined, or flip it over when you least expect it. That's right, today, We're opening up Chapter 7, Looking Out to the Open Sea. The macroeconomic indicators that shape your wallet. Sounds a bit academic, doesn't it? Macro indicators feels distant and abstract. But I promise you, these things are not floating in the clouds. They're the winds blowing into the sails of your life, directly affecting your job, the money in your savings account, and even the price of your everyday meals. Our goal today is very simple: decode macroeconomic concepts, like GDP, inflation, and unemployment in the easiest way possible. And more importantly, help you see how they directly impact your day-to-day life and every personal financial decision you make. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about one indicator you probably hear about on the news all the time: GDP, or gross domestic product. Think of it this way. GDP is like an annual full-body checkup for an entire country. It measures the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country's borders over a specific period, usually a year or a quarter. Sounds complicated, but it's really not. You can think of it as the total revenue that a country generates. When GDP is growing, people say the economy is healthy or expanding. That means factories are running, companies are growing, services are thriving, and most importantly, a lot of new jobs are being created. So why does that matter for your job? Think about it. If the economy is booming and businesses are doing well, they need more people. They hire more employees, open new branches, and expand production. That's when your job opportunities increase, wages tend to rise because of competition for workers, and your position feels more secure. You might even see raises and bonuses. And if you're thinking about starting a business, a strong growing GDP is like fertile soil for new ideas. On the other hand, when GDP growth slows down, or worse, starts shrinking, what we call a recession, it's like the economy has caught the flu. Businesses may cut costs, freeze hiring, or even lay people off. Suddenly, it gets tougher to find a job, salaries can stagnate or drop, and your work life feels more stressful. I remember a friend of mine who works in the home furnishings industry telling me, "Just look at GDP, and you'll know whether orders are coming in or not." When GDP was growing strongly and people were building homes or remodeling his workshop, could barely keep up with demand. When the economy slowed down, orders dried up and he had to start cutting worker hours. Understanding GDP gives you a big picture view of the playing field you're operating on. It's not just a number in a news report. It's a measure of the health of the job market of your industry and at a deeper level of your own financial stability. If GDP is the health of the economy, then inflation is the silent thief you need to watch out for. Inflation is simply the rise in the general price level of goods and services over time, which reduces the purchasing power of your money. In other words, with the same amount of money, you can buy fewer goods and services than before. Think about this years ago in the US. You might have gotten a decent breakfast, a cup of coffee and something simple to eat, for $3 to $4. Today, that same kind of breakfast might easily cost you $10, $12. That's inflation at work. Or have you noticed how some snack packages or cartons of ice cream stay the same price, but the size quietly shrinks? That's a sneaky form of inflation people jokingly call shrinkflation. So how does inflation affect your wallet? It hits your purchasing power directly. Let's say your salary goes up 5% a year, but inflation is 7%. On paper, you're making more money, but in reality, your purchasing power is dropping by about 2% a year. You end up feeling like you're working harder, but life still feels tight because prices are running faster than your paycheck. Inflation is also the enemy of savings. If you just let your money sit in a bank account earning interest below the inflation rate, it's losing value over time. For example, if you save $10,000 today and inflation outpaces your interest rate 5 years from now, that money might only buy what $8,000 can buy today. That's why people who understand economics look for ways to invest their money in assets that grow faster than inflation, so they can protect the real value of their cash. Take a look at your grocery bills or your weekly gas expenses. If you notice those costs climbing significantly, even though you're not buying more than before, that's inflation knocking on your wallet. The third indicator we need to talk about is unemployment. This isn't just a cold statistic. Behind it are real people, real worries, and real stories. The unemployment rate is the percentage of people in the labor force who are able and willing to work actively looking for a job, but unable to find one. When unemployment is high, it's a sign the economy is struggling. Businesses aren't creating enough new jobs, and some may be cutting staff just to survive. The impact of unemployment on individuals, loss of income, increased financial stress on themselves and their families, debts piling up, and mental health taking a hit. Confidence drops, and in some cases, it can lead to more serious social problems. Think about that uneasy feeling when you hear your company is restructuring, or when a friend suddenly loses their job. That anxiety is exactly what a high unemployment rate represents on society. When many people are out of work, total income in the economy falls, spending drops, and that hurts other businesses too. Government budgets feel the strain, tax revenues shrink, while spending on social safety nets and unemployment benefits goes up. When we look at the unemployment rate, we're not just looking at a number. We're seeing thousands, even millions of stories about people searching for opportunities and families trying to get by. Understanding it helps us empathize more. And it also reminds us to prepare for tough times by building skills, saving, and nurturing relationships. GDP, inflation, unemployment. You can see how they all move up and down, constantly shifting, right? That's because the economy is never standing still. It moves according to a natural rhythm, like the tides coming in and out or the changing of the seasons. That's what we call the business cycle. The business cycle describes the repeated ups and downs of the economy through several phases. 1. Expansion. GDP grows strongly, unemployment is low, and inflation may start to creep up. Businesses expand production, hire more people, and consumers feel confident and spend more. 2. Peak. The economy hits the top of its growth. Output and employment are at high levels, but inflation can become a real concern. 3. Contraction, recession. GDP starts to fall, unemployment rises, and both consumer spending and business investment decline. Companies struggle and may lay off workers. This is when the economic news usually sounds pretty grim. 4. Trough. The economy hits the bottom of the cycle and then slowly starts to recover. And then the cycle repeats. Why does the business cycle matter to you? Because understanding it helps you make smarter financial decisions. During expansion. This may be a good time to invest. Look for promotions, negotiate raises, or even start a business. Stock markets often rise, and real estate can heat up. During recession. This is when you want to be more cautious. Cut unnecessary spending, boost your emergency savings, and avoid overly risky investments. At the same time, downturns can offer rare opportunities for long-term investors to buy assets at lower prices, but only if they're prepared and have the financial cushion to take advantage. Think back to major crises like 2008 or the COVID-19 downturn. The people who had saving skills and patience were the ones who weathered the storm best. Knowing that the economy naturally has ups and downs keeps you from panicking when things head south and keeps you from getting too overconfident when everything looks perfect. It allows you to build a long-term financial strategy that plans for both sunny days and rainy ones. So we've just sailed out into the open sea together, exploring macro indicators that may sound abstract, but are deeply tied to our everyday lives. GDP, inflation, unemployment, and the business cycle. They're not just textbook vocabulary. They are the winds and currents that shape the ship of your life and your wallet. Understanding these indicators won't turn you into a professional economist overnight, but it will help you become a smarter consumer, a more responsible investor, and a worker who's better prepared for the future. Think of them as your map and compass, helping you navigate your financial journey more safely and more effectively in this vast economic ocean. Thank you for spending your time with me in Chapter 7. I hope today's ideas help you see the world around you with clearer eyes and make wiser decisions going forward. Now we're going to dive deep into a topic that is absolutely critical. You can think of it as the lifeblood running through the veins of any economy: money. Or to be more precise, Chapter 8, the flow of money. Banking, credit, and investing. Money isn't just paper bills or numbers on a bank app. It's a living system constantly in motion, connecting every part of our lives, from the sandwich you grab for breakfast, to the home you dream of owning, to giant corporations and even national policy decisions. Our goal today is to unpack the role of this financial system, understand how the gatekeepers of money steer its flow, and why credit and investment are such essential engines of economic growth. 1. The central bank and interest rates decisions in a boardroom that shape your mortgage. Think of it like this: if the economy is a living body, then the central bank in the U.S., that's the Federal Reserve, or the Fed, is the heart. And the most powerful tool this heart uses to pump blood and regulate the heartbeat is the interest rate. Every time you hear the news say the Fed is raising or cutting interest rates, don't treat it as some distant headline. It directly affects your wallet and your financial future. Picture a closed-door meeting room where policymakers sit around a table. They aren't just looking at complicated charts. They're also thinking about the lives of millions of people. They decide whether to raise or lower interest rates based on goals like controlling inflation when prices are rising too fast, or boosting growth when the economy is slowing down. When interest rates go up, borrowing money becomes more expensive. Businesses have to think twice before taking out loans to expand, hire more staff, or open new locations. And for regular people like us, your mortgage, your car loan, even your credit card interest can all go higher. A difference of just a couple of percentage points can add up to tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of a 30-year mortgage. When interest rates go down, borrowing becomes cheaper. That encourages businesses to invest, expand, and create jobs. It also nudges us to spend and invest more because the cost of accessing money right now is lower. You see, those dry policy decisions made in a quiet boardroom are actually powerful valves controlling the entire flow of money through the economy. 2. Or credit. The leverage that helps businesses grow and people live better. When we talk about the flow of money, we can't skip credit. At its core, credit is about trust. It's the ability for you or your business to use someone else's money, like a bank's or a lender's, for a period of time, with the promise that you'll pay it back plus a fee called interest. People often think of credit as debt in a purely negative sense. But that's not always true. In economics, credit is often viewed as a powerful form of leverage. Imagine a small business with a brilliant idea, but not enough cash to bring it to life. A bank loan can be the leverage that lets them buy equipment, purchase materials, rent a storefront, hire staff, in short, transform a good idea into a real profitable business. Without credit, countless promising businesses would never get off the ground. For individuals, credit helps us reach major life milestones we couldn't realistically afford in cash up front. A mortgage to buy a home, student loans to pursue a higher quality education, even a credit card when used wisely to smooth out monthly cash flow and build a solid credit history. These are all forms of credit that can improve our quality of life and open doors to opportunity. Of course, leverage is a double-edged sword. Using credit carelessly can lead to crushing debt and financial collapse. But when used wisely and managed responsibly, credit becomes a vital driver of growth for both individuals and the broader economy. It keeps money from sitting idle and pushes it into motion where it can create new value. 3. From saving to investing. Getting your money to work for you. After talking about how money is steered and how it can be used as leverage, let's look at another crucial angle, turning idle money into a force that generates more money. That's the journey from saving to investing. Saving is the first step, setting aside part of your income for the future. It's safe and essential for emergencies, but savings alone usually grow very slowly, often not even keeping up with inflation. If you want your money to truly work for you to grow and multiply, you have to invest. Think of it this way. Instead of leaving your seeds, your money sitting in a storage bin, a low-yield savings account, you plant them in fertile soil, the investment market. Investing can mean buying stocks in companies whose future you believe in, buying government or corporate bonds to earn fixed interest, purchasing real estate to rent out or hold for appreciation, or even investing in yourself through education and new skills. What's the goal of investing? To grow your wealth over time, outpace inflation, and help you reach big financial goals. Early retirement, buying a home, funding your kids' education, or simply building a solid, stable net worth. Of course, investing always comes with risk. There is no such thing as a truly risk-free investment. But with knowledge, research, and a diversified strategy, you can reduce risk and improve your chances of solid returns. Most important of all time is the investor's best friend. Start early, stay consistent, and let the power of compound interest work its magic. 4. Financial bubbles and crises. The expensive lessons of history. Even though the flow of money and the financial system are crucial, they aren't always smooth or stable. History has shown that sometimes this flow can become chaotic, forming financial bubbles and triggering severe crises. A financial bubble happens when the price of some asset, stocks, real estate, or even tulip bulbs, in one famous historical case, shoots up to irrational levels, far beyond its true underlying value. This is often fueled by market euphoria, herd mentality speculation, and overly easy credit. People pour in because they see others making money, creating a self-reinforcing loop. But like any bubble, it eventually pops. When confidence evaporates or some shock hits the system, prices can plunge. Panic sets in. People rush to sell, triggering a wave of forced sales, sending prices even lower. Wealth is wiped out. Businesses go under and unemployment spreads. That's a financial crisis. We've seen expensive lessons. The dot-com bubble in the late 1990s, when many tech stocks with little or no real profit were pumped to insane valuations. The global housing crisis in 2008, when subprime mortgages and complex financial products lit the fuse for a meltdown that shook the entire world. What do these episodes teach us? That greed and herd behavior can be incredibly dangerous. That a lack of transparency and poor risk management in the financial system can have devastating consequences. And that no matter how hard central banks try to stabilize things, markets will always carry some level of inherent risk. The key is to learn from history, be cautious with our financial decisions, and never stop educating ourselves. And that's our quick tour through Chapter 8, The Flow of Money, Banking, Credit, and Investing. From the Fed's big-picture interest rate decisions, to the power of credit in fueling growth, to the importance of turning savings into investments, and finally, to the hidden risks of financial bubbles. All of these are crucial pieces of the larger puzzle of how money moves. Understanding how money flows, how it's controlled, and how you can harness it doesn't just help you manage your personal finances better, it helps you see more deeply into how the economic world actually works. Money isn't just a medium of exchange. It's energy, it's information, and it's at the core of nearly every economic activity. I hope this chapter has given you fresh and valuable perspectives. Remember, knowledge is power, especially in the fast-moving world of finance. In the next chapter, we'll shift to another equally fascinating topic, markets and prices. The law of supply and demand and how prices are set. We'll explore how millions of buying and selling decisions each day shape the prices of everything, and why the law of supply and demand is such a powerful force. Welcome back to our channel, the place where we peel back those complicated economics concepts and turn them into real, relatable, everyday American stories. I'm WealthRise Stories, and today we're stepping into Chapter 9, Economics in a Flat World. The story of globalization. Let's start with what you're holding in your hand, your smartphone. Have you ever wondered why the phone you use here in the US is designed in California, runs on chips made in Arizona, or Taiwan uses a camera from Japan, a display from South Korea gets assembled in China or Mexico, and then ends up on shelves in New York, Dallas, Chicago? That's not just technology. That is globalization in its purest form. The US is the center of innovation, but not the center of manufacturing. America is strongest in design, technology, research and development, supply chain, planning, branding, and marketing. Meanwhile, countries like Mexico, China, Malaysia have advantages in lower labor costs, large-scale factories, efficient assembly skills, lower operating costs. The result, that $799 iPhone suddenly makes perfect sense. If it were built 100% in the US, it could easily cost $2,000, $3,000 later. That's the power of comparative advantage. Each country focuses on what it does best. A very American example of global specialization. United States chip design, tech, innovation. Germany automobiles, industrial machinery. Mexico and Asia, large-scale assembly. Mass production, Japan and South Korea, high-quality electronics components. Brazil agriculture, India, IT services, and outsourcing. This is why there's no reason for America to hand-assemble every iPhone, sew every shirt, or build every TV from scratch. Globalization allows people to buy cheaper goods, enjoy more choices, access technology faster. Exchange rates touch your wallet more than you think. If the US dollar gets stronger, traveling to Europe, cheaper imported goods, cheaper but US exports. Harder to sell abroad if the dollar weakens. Travel, more expensive imports, costlier exports. American companies benefit. Most Americans don't look at exchange rates every day, but the price of everything from gas to the TV in your living room is influenced by it. But globalization isn't all sunshine. 1. Manufacturing jobs vanished from America. States like Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana were once the beating heart of American manufacturing, the Rust Belt. But when companies moved factories to Mexico or Asia, millions of American workers lost jobs, lost income, lost health insurance, lost their sense of pride and identity. This isn't theory. This is lived reality for millions of American families. 2. Inequality rose sharply. High-skill workers, tech, finance, engineering, income soared. Meanwhile, factory workers, manual laborers, people in jobs that can't be globalized, fell behind. 3. The race to the bottom. As companies search for cheaper production, countries compete by lowering environmental standards, weakening labor protections, paying low wages, increasing work hours. Who suffers the most? Workers and the environment. 4. American culture gets watered down or exported too aggressively. On one hand, McDonald's, Starbucks, Disney spread everywhere. On the other hand, Americans worry their local culture is fading or foreign culture is influencing U.S. communities too strongly. Globalization is an exchange, but it's not always balanced. The world is flat and Americans are standing right in the center. The phone you use, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, the food you buy, all of it lives inside a global network. Globalization isn't just a textbook word. It's the force shaping the jobs Americans hold, the prices Americans pay, the opportunities Americans get, and the future of the entire U.S. economy. Understand it, and you'll understand how the world works. understand it, and you'll make better financial choices. Understand it, and you'll truly become a global citizen. Concepts like comparative advantage exchange rates or the rise of multinational corporations aren't abstract ideas sitting in a textbook. They're powerful forces shaping your daily life, influencing everything from what you buy to the job opportunities available to you. Understanding global economics doesn't just make you a smarter global citizen. It helps you make better personal decisions, prepare for what's coming, and contribute to a more fair, balanced world. We've just explored a major pillar of business economics. I hope this chapter gave you deeper insight into how the world really operates. Let's keep exploring together in the chapters ahead. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next exciting episodes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 10, the final chapter of our journey through business administration, theory, practice, and application. Volume 1, Business Economics. It may be the last chapter, but it's also the one that opens up the most reflection and the most imagination and the most conversation about what comes next. If the previous chapters were about unpacking theories, principles, and the foundations that shaped business in the past and present, then today, we shift our focus forward toward a future full of promise, but also full of challenges. Chapter 10 is titled The Future of Business Digital Economy, Sustainability, and Trust. It sounds big, I know. But really, it's an invitation for us to think about the forces reshaping the entire global economy, not just technology, but the way we define value, purpose, and the role business plays in society. Let's dive into these emerging forces, a world where everything we thought we knew may no longer stay the same. The sharing economy, when ownership is no longer the ultimate goal. Have you noticed how our relationship with ownership and consumption has been changing at lightning speed? I remember years ago, if you didn't own a car and needed to get somewhere, your options were pretty limited. Call a traditional taxi or hope a friend could give you a ride. But today, one tap on your phone and Uber or Lyft is waiting outside your door. Going on vacation. Instead of booking a traditional hotel, you can find a cozy apartment on Airbnb from Manhattan to Denver, from Los Angeles to Austin. This is the essence of the sharing economy, a model built on sharing access to assets and services. Instead of buying something outright, we rent, borrow, and maximize what already exists. It's not just cars and housing. Think shared workspaces like WeWork, peer-to-peer equipment rentals, or even skills being shared on platforms like Fiverr or TaskRabbit. Uber, Lyft, and Airbnb don't own cars or hotels. What they own is the platform where people who need something meet people who have something extra. This creates massive convenience for users, new income streams for millions of individuals, and a level of resource optimization we've never seen before. As someone who travels constantly, these platforms have become essential tools for me. They save me money, yes, but more importantly, they deliver personalized experiences traditional services rarely match. But the sharing economy isn't flawless. How do we regulate it fairly? What about gig workers' rights? How do policymakers keep up with innovations that outpace the laws built for an older era? Those are questions all of us consumers, lawmakers, and businesses must wrestle with. Impact-driven business, when profit isn't the only goal. For decades, business success was measured by one main metric: profit. But now, a new wave is rising: impact businesses. Companies that believe success is not just about financial numbers, but about the value they bring to communities and the planet. This doesn't eliminate profit. A sustainable company must still make money. But profit is no longer the only objective. These companies intentionally focus on solving societal issues: climate change, worker rights, plastic waste, fair access to education, equality of opportunity. Across America, we're seeing more and more brands commit to ESG values: Patagonia, Tesla, Beyond Meat, Starbucks. Consumers, especially Gen Z and millennials, are willing to pay more for brands that align with their values. In a world of dwindling resources and rising inequality, building a business purely for short-term profit is no longer sustainable. The companies that last will be the ones that lead with purpose. I'm the same way. I prefer buying from brands I believe are truly trying to do the right thing. The economy of trust. The power of ratings and reviews. In a digital world where you can rent a home in Florida from an owner living in Chicago or buy something from a stranger across the country, trust becomes the most important currency. And what builds trust today? Reviews and ratings. When you shop on Amazon, what's the first thing you do? You check the reviews because a product with 1,000 five-star ratings almost always beats a heavily advertised product with only a handful of reviews. Book an Airbnb, you look at the host's ratings. Call an Uber. The driver's rating influences how safe you feel. Platforms like Amazon, Airbnb, Uber, Yelp, TripAdvisor operate as ecosystems of trust. Good reviews lift people up. Bad reviews push them out. It's a self-regulating mechanism more powerful than any policy manual. But this trust economy also faces a major threat: fake reviews. Americans are more skeptical than ever about bots, paid reviews, and disguised promotional content. The war against fake reviews is happening across the entire digital economy. Personally, when I have a great experience, I always leave a positive review. And when I'm disappointed, I leave honest but constructive feedback. Because trust is something we all have to build together. The challenge ahead: artificial intelligence and automation. And then we come to a force transforming the world faster than anything else: AI and automation. From customer service chatbots, to robots in Texas manufacturing plants, to self-driving cars in California, to Netflix algorithms predicting your next show. AI is everywhere. But the big question is, how will AI reshape the labor market? On one hand, many repetitive jobs will disappear. Call center reps, bank tellers, assembly workers. On the other hand, AI will create entire new industries: AI engineers, ethics specialists, AI human experience designers, robotics technicians. AI isn't replacing humans. AI is augmenting humans, taking over the boring tasks so we can focus on creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence, things AI cannot replicate. Even my own job as a content creator is changing dramatically. I use AI for research, brainstorming, drafting. But the emotional connection I build with you, AI, can't replicate that. The challenge for all of us is preparing the next generation. Education must evolve. Skills must be refreshed constantly. A lifelong learning mindset becomes a requirement, not a choice. And that's our journey through the future of business. From how we own and consume, to the purpose of modern companies, to the digital economy of trust, to the unstoppable rise of AI. We've explored the major currents that will shape the next decades. What I hope you take away from Chapter 10 and from this entire book is this: the future isn't something we wait for. The future is something we build. These trends aren't just ideas on a page. They are opportunities and challenges right in front of us. If you're an entrepreneur, a manager, or simply someone navigating modern American life, understanding and adapting to these changes is the key to thriving. Stay curious, keep learning, and always strive to create meaningful, positive value in this world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through business administration theory, practice, and application. I hope these insights become a valuable part of your toolkit as you move forward in life. I hope you've had a fun and eye-opening time dissecting those basic but incredibly powerful concepts from business administration theory, practice, and application. Volume 1. Business Economics with me. We've gone through supply, demand, opportunity, cost, different market structures. It all sounds pretty academic, right? But in reality, these are the lenses that help us see the world more clearly and more deeply. And I know that after all the theory, a lot of you might be asking yourselves, so how do I actually turn all of this into something useful in my real life? That's exactly why I'm here today. I've put together a special tailor-made roadmap for you, a 7-day action plan turning theory into experience that I truly believe won't just reinforce what you've learned, but will permanently change the way you look at everything around you. We're not just going to study economics, we're going to live it. Ready? Let's kick off this little adventure together. Day 1-2. Become a professional price watcher. For the first 2 days, your mission is incredibly simple. But it's the foundation for everything you'll understand later. I want you to temporarily forget you're just a regular consumer and step into the role of a professional price watcher. Pick 3 items that you buy and use regularly in your day-to-day life. Don't pick anything too complex or something you rarely buy. Think of familiar things like a box of breakfast cereal, a can of soda you usually drink while you work, a cup of yogurt, or even the price of a latte at your go-to coffee shop. Once you've picked your 3 items, start tracking their prices over these 2 days. Don't just write down the numbers. Pay attention to the context around them. Where did you buy them? A big box store like Walmart, or Target, a convenience store like 7-Eleven, or a weekend farmer's market. How does today's price compare to yesterday or last week? And most importantly, start building the habit of asking yourself, what might be affecting this price? For example, if you see the price of leafy greens at the farmer's market suddenly spike, try to connect the dots with things you've seen in the news or heard from people around you. Was there a recent storm drought or flood in the states that supply those crops? Or if a drink you like suddenly goes on sale at a supermarket, is it because the store is running a weekend promotion, a big event like Black Friday? Or because the manufacturer just pushed a new batch with unusually high supply? This exercise is more than just note-taking. It's your first step toward really seeing the most basic relationships in economics, the link between supply and demand, between production and transportation costs, and the final retail price. You'll be surprised how behind every random price tag there's a whole economic story, a long supply chain and market forces quietly at work. Write down your observations in a small notebook, or just use the Notes app on your phone. I'm confident that after 2 days, you'll already have a simple but vivid picture of how the prices of everyday goods move around you. You'll start noticing things you never paid attention to before. Day 3-4. Dissect your own purchase decisions through an economic lens. Now let's set aside the price detective role. On days 3 and 4, we're going to zoom in on your own decisions. I want you to think back to a recent purchase you made. Pick something not too far in the past, maybe within the last few days. It could be that brand new shirt you finally bought after eyeing it for weeks, signing up for an online course to upgrade your skills, or even a seemingly trivial choice, like deciding between cooking at home versus ordering delivery through Uber Eats, DoorDash, or a similar app. Now put that decision under the lens of 2 important economic concepts we talked about in the book, opportunity cost and marginal benefit. Opportunity cost. When you choose one thing, you're always giving up something else, your next best alternative. So when you bought that new shirt for X, what did you give up? Maybe that X could have paid for 2 movie tickets or gone into your savings for that dream trip. When you chose to order delivery that cost you Y, you might have given up the chance to save that money and cook a healthier meal at home. Be honest with yourself and ask, if I hadn't done this, what is the best thing I could have done with the same money, time, or energy? Your answer is your opportunity cost. It's not just about dollars. It's also your time and your effort. Marginal benefit. What really pushed you to make that purchase? What extra benefit did you get from that last unit of product or service? That new shirt isn't just fabric. It gives you confidence, helps you look sharper at an important event, or simply satisfies your love of shopping. That online course gives you more knowledge, one more skill, and potentially a better career opportunity down the road. Marginal benefit is the extra satisfaction or value you receive from consuming one more unit of a good or service. When you break it down like this, you'll see that sometimes we buy on impulse. But when we look back with an economic lens, we can better understand the real motivations and consequences of our choices. The goal of this exercise is not to make you feel guilty about past decisions. It's to train your thinking to help you make smarter choices in the future by weighing more carefully what you give up against what you gain. This is how you truly start to own your wallet and your time. Day 5. Discover the different market types around you. On day 5, we're going to zoom out a bit and recognize the different playing fields of the economy you interact with every day. Did you know that even grabbing breakfast at a neighborhood diner or shopping at a supermarket means you're already inside specific market structures the book talked about? Spend today observing and identifying the different types of markets you touch in a single day. That small restaurant or independent coffee shop you love. That's often a great example of monopolistic competition. There are tons of diners and coffee shops in town, but each one has its own secret sauce, its own menu design and vibe to attract customers. They can charge slightly higher prices thanks to that differentiation, but not too high, because customers still have plenty of alternatives if they feel the prices are unfair. The big supermarket where you shop every week, giant retail chains like Walmart, Target, Costco, Kroger, tend to operate in an oligopoly. Only a handful of big players dominate the market, and a pricing or promotion decision from one of them often forces the others to react. They constantly watch each other and adjust their strategies, creating a quiet but intense battle behind the scenes. Your wireless provider Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. That's also classic oligopoly. In the US, we only have a few major carriers. Switching providers can be a hassle, and these companies have some pricing power without immediately losing all their customers overnight. Think even more broadly. Where you fill up your gas, what kind of market is that? When you buy a new phone, how would you describe the smartphone market? Recognizing these market structures helps you understand how companies compete for your business, how prices get set, and why you face the specific choices you do as a consumer. It helps you become a smarter shopper, someone who knows which field they're playing on and who the main players really are. Day 6 to 7 connect macroeconomic news to your life. Finally, in the last 2 days of this 7-day plan, it's time to tie everything together and expand your thinking. Now we look at the bigger picture. I want you to pick a few major economic news stories from the past week or month. Don't be scared off by the jargon. Focus on topics that clearly affect everyday life: inflation, interest rates, gas prices, exchange rates, monetary policy, and so on. You can read from trusted business outlets like the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, CNBC, Financial Times, or even watch the evening financial segments on TV. After you read the news, don't just absorb it passively. Turn it into an inner dialogue. Try to connect each piece of news directly to your life. Inflation. When you see that inflation is rising, think, this is why the prices of the items I tracked on days 1-2 keep creeping up. The purchasing power of my dollars is shrinking day by day. So, should I adjust my spending habits? Should I rethink how I save or invest? Interest rates. If the Federal Reserve raises or cuts interest rates, how does that affect you? If you're planning to take out a loan for a house, a car, or a business, those rate changes will hit your monthly payments, making them heavier or lighter. If you have money in a savings account or CDs, interest rates will determine how much you earn on those savings. Imagine what that looks like in your real budget. Gas prices. News about gas going up or down is clearly something almost all of us feel, whether you drive a sedan, SUV, or a pickup. Higher gas prices don't just make your commute more expensive. They raise shipping costs and indirectly the price of food and almost everything else, because everything has to be transported. Think about how a small move in gas prices might affect your weekend road trip, or even the price of that meal you ordered on DoorDash or Uber Eats. Doing this doesn't just deepen your understanding of macroeconomic concepts. It turns you into a more responsible citizen, someone who can analyze, question, and make better decisions in a complex economic environment. It gives you the power to move from being a passive receiver of news to someone who understands and adapts. And just like that, we've walked through this fun 7-day action plan, turning theory into experience. I know at first it may sound like a big challenge, but I believe that after this week, you'll never see economics as some dry, distant subject again. Instead, you'll see it as a powerful lens, a kind of magic toolkit that helps you decode the world around you more clearly and deeply than ever before. You'll start noticing invisible connections between your personal decisions, the actions of the businesses you deal with, and the big picture policies of governments. Economics isn't just a bunch of complex formulas or confusing charts. It's an ongoing story about people choices, scarcity, and how we try to optimize our lives in a constantly changing world. Remember, the goal of this plan is not to turn you into a brilliant economist in just 1 week. It's to train your economic mindset to spark endless curiosity and help you link what you read to what you actually live every day. That's the true heart of turning theory into living knowledge. If you try this plan, I would really love to hear from you in the comments below. What did you learn? What surprised you the most? Did you notice anything especially interesting? Share your discoveries with our community. I can't wait to see what you find. I know that when you hear a title like Business Administration Theory, Practice, and Application, Vol 1, Stir Business Economics, it's easy to feel a little overwhelmed, right? Thick pages, dense terms, lots of theory. But don't worry. I'm here to help us distill the good stuff from that treasure chest of knowledge. Because at the end of the day, economics isn't just a subject for Wall Street pros or big-shot CEOs. It's a way of thinking, a lens that helps us see the world more clearly and make smarter decisions, whether in business or in our everyday lives. Today, I want to wrap up the most important lessons from this massive book into 3 super simple thinking rules, easy to remember. And most importantly, something you can carry with you and start using right away. These 3 keys will open the door to a world where you better understand decisions' behavior and how markets actually work. Ready? Let's jump in. 1. Everything involves a trade-off. There's no free lunch. Always ask, what's the opportunity cost? The first rule, and probably the most fundamental idea in economics, is everything involves a trade-off. Or as Americans like to say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Nothing is truly free. It sounds obvious, but we forget this all the time. We act like we can have everything, or that there's a best choice out there that doesn't require sacrificing anything. But in reality, our resources, time, money, energy are limited. When you choose to do one thing, you are always giving up the chance to do something else. Take a very simple example. Let's say you have a free evening. You could use that time to learn a new skill, watch a movie, hit the gym, or just scroll social media. If you decide to watch a movie, you've traded away the chance to exercise, to learn something new, or to catch up with friends. That thing you gave up, the best alternative you didn't choose, is your opportunity cost. I remember once having to choose between 2 projects. One paid a lot of money but required 2 straight weeks of late nights. The other paid less, but left room in my schedule to attend my kid's performance. On paper, the first project looked like the obvious winner financially. But when I asked myself, what's the opportunity cost of taking the higher-paying project, the answer hit me. I'd be missing a once-in-a-lifetime moment in my child's life. That was something I could never get back. In the end, I chose the second project, and I've never regretted that decision. So here's my advice. Whenever you're facing a choice, big or small, take a moment to ask yourself, what's the opportunity cost of this decision? What am I giving up to get what I want? That one question will help you see the real value of your choices and make decisions that aren't just based on what you gain, but also on what you're willing to lose. 2. People respond to incentives. Look for the incentive behind every action, yours and theirs. Now for the second key, people respond to incentives. This is one of the most powerful principles in economics. It drives almost everything we do and everything the people around us do. An incentive can be anything that motivates us to act. It can be a reward, money status, recognition, happiness, or punishment, loss, criticism, fear, discomfort. Humans are mostly rational. We tend to behave in ways that maximize our benefits and minimize our costs. Think about it. Why does an employee choose to work overtime? Maybe they want to raise a promotion to impress their boss, or simply to prove something to themselves. Why does a government put a high tax on cigarettes? Because they want to create a negative incentive to make smoking more expensive, so people are more likely to quit or avoid starting. And here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes incentives are designed with good intentions, but end up backfiring. There's a classic story about a daycare that started charging parents a small fee for picking up their kids late. You'd expect late pickups to decrease, right? But instead, they increased. Why? Because before, parents felt guilty for being late. After the fine was introduced, that guilt got turned into a price. Parents thought, I'm paying for it, so it's fine if I'm late. The incentive completely flipped. For me personally, understanding incentives has totally changed how I look at work and relationships. Instead of just judging people's actions, I've learned to pause and ask, what incentive is driving this behavior? What are they trying to gain? What are they trying to avoid? And when I want to motivate myself to do something hard, I'll design some small incentives for myself. For example, after I finish recording a section of this video, I might treat myself to a really good cup of coffee. So build the habit of asking, what's the incentive behind this action? Not just for others, but for yourself too. When you understand what's driving behavior, you can predict it better, manage teams more effectively, and even design systems that motivate you to go after your toughest goals. 3. The market is a conversation. Prices are the language, and every decision you make is part of that dialogue. Finally, the third key, and one of the most fascinating ideas, the market is a conversation. And in that conversation, prices are the language. Every decision you make to buy, sell, or invest is part of that ongoing dialogue. When we talk about the market, we often think of it as some distant, abstract thing, Wall Street stock tickers, charts, and graphs. But that's not the full story. The market is really just the sum of billions of interactions between billions of people every single day. It's where buyers and sellers meet, exchange information, and ultimately reach agreements. Prices, whether it's the price of a cup of coffee, a house, or a share of stock, aren't random numbers. They're signals. They carry information about supply and demand, about perceived value, about scarcity, and even about expectations for the future. When the price of something suddenly jumps, the market is telling you that supply might be tight or demand has spiked. When prices fall, it might be saying there's too much supply or a better alternative has appeared. And we, as consumers, producers, workers, and investors, are all participating in that conversation through our choices. I used to be a pretty casual shopper. If I liked something, I bought it. I didn't think too much beyond that. But once I realized that every dollar I spend is essentially a vote, my behavior changed. When I buy from a company that treats its workers well or cares about the environment, I'm voting for those values. When I boycott a brand because of unethical behavior, I'm sending a clear message back to the market. So try looking at the market not just as a place where you buy and sell stuff, but as a living, evolving system, and you are part of it. Every time you decide to buy or not buy, invest or not invest, you're shaping that ongoing conversation. Learn to listen to the language of prices and use your votes, your money, your choices intentionally. You'll realize you have way more influence than you ever thought. So, there you have it. 3 core ideas, 3 economic thinking keys we've explored today, distilled from business administration theory, practice, and application. Follow 1. Business economics. 1. Everything involves a trade-off. Always ask, what's the opportunity cost? 2. people respond to incentives. Always look for what's driving this behavior. 3. The market is a conversation. Prices are the language, and you are an active participant. They sound simple, and that's the beauty of it. Their real power lies in how they can transform the way you see the world and make decisions. These principles aren't just useful for running a business. They're powerful for managing your personal finances, building relationships, and even understanding deeper social issues. Try applying them to your everyday life, starting with the smallest choices. I truly believe you'll start to notice a huge difference in how you think and how you interact with the world around you. Awesome. We've just gone on a really meaningful learning journey together through business administration, theory practice, and application. Follow 1. Business economics. I hope you feel like these pages didn't just open up a new world, but also handed you some sharp tools to understand that world and interact with it more intelligently. Now that we've reached the final lines of this book review, I don't want you to see this as a period at the end of a sentence. I want you to see it as an ellipsis, a new beginning, the start of a never-ending journey of learning and real-life experimentation. We've dug into the most fundamental principles, the concepts that sound dry at first, but quietly shape every business decision and every market movement. From supply and demand, consumer behavior, and market structures, to strategic decisions inside a company, every chapter has given us a fresh way to look at things, hasn't it? Now, I want to ask you a very personal and very important question. Out of everything we've talked about, what has stayed with you the most? Was there a concept that completely changed the way you think about the price of something you buy? Or a principle that helped you better understand why one company succeeds and another fails? Maybe you realized economics actually applies to something as simple as how you manage your personal budget or the way you decide what to buy day to day. Every experience you've had managing your family's finances, making a big purchase, or even just reacting to a gas price hike is a powerful real-life case study. Those experiences don't just reinforce the theory. They widen our view of the countless ways economics shows up in everyday life. That's why I would love to hear your own economic story. Share it down in the comments. Don't hold back. It could be that aha moment when something finally clicked, or a financial challenge you're trying to solve using what you've just learned. Every story, big or small, is a valuable building block in the bigger picture of how economics impacts all of our lives. And who knows, your story might be the exact piece of inspiration or clarity that someone else out there has been searching for. Let's build a community where we share, learn from each other, and inspire each other to grow. If you found this video helpful, if you felt like there was real value in the time we've spent together, please don't forget to like this video. That one click isn't just emotional support for me and the team. It's also a powerful signal to the YouTube algorithm that helps this video reach more people and spreads this knowledge to even more curious minds. And if you think this content could help a friend, a coworker, or anyone who's trying to understand the world of business and economics a little better, go ahead and share this video with them. Sharing knowledge is one of the best ways for all of us to grow together and build a smarter, more informed community. Finally, if you don't want to miss any future book, deep dives, or learning journeys like this, if you want to keep exploring the hidden treasures tucked inside great books with me, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll be one of the first to know whenever a new video drops, and we won't lose each other on this path of discovery and growth. Our community is growing every day, and I'm genuinely grateful to have you as part of it. But learning shouldn't stop at just absorbing theory. Knowledge only becomes truly valuable when it's applied, when it turns into action and leads to real outcomes. That's why I always encourage you not just to listen, but to do. You remember the 7-day action plan we talked about earlier, right? Now is the time to turn intention into action. Pick one concept you resonated with the most from this book. Maybe it's opportunity cost, the law of supply and demand, or how to analyze a competitive market. Then commit the next 7 days to actively observing, noting, and testing that idea in your real life. Try applying opportunity cost when you're about to make a big spending decision. Analyze the supply and demand of a product you love in the market. Or more simply, build a more intentional personal budget based on what you've just learned about economic thinking and financial management. Take on this small challenge. And after 7 days, I really hope you'll come back here and share your results in the comments. Tell me what you did. Tell me what you learned from putting theory into practice. Tell me what shifted in your thinking. Whether the outcome was a big win or a painful but valuable lesson, it's all incredibly important. We'll go through it together, learn from it together, and celebrate every small step forward you take on this journey. Because at the end of the day, that's what turning knowledge into power is all about. Remember, business administration theory, practice, and application. Volume 1. Business economics is just the first doorway and awesome starting point for your journey. Think of it as a rough map that shows you the main roads and the big mountains to climb. The economic world out there is vast, fast-changing, and full of opportunities waiting for you to discover. Economics isn't just numbers and dry charts. It's the breath of everyday life, the flow of society, the engine behind almost every decision made by people and organizations. Every single day, markets shift. New technologies appear, new policies are rolled out, and each one opens up new challenges and new chances. Don't stop here. Keep reading. Keep learning from more books, from credible sources, from experts, and most importantly, from your own observations and real-world experiences. Train your curiosity. Ask questions about every economic phenomenon around you. Why is gold going up? Why did that startup explode in success? But what's really driving the global economy right now? Once you start asking questions, you'll start chasing answers. And that's when your never-ending journey of discovery truly takes off. I truly believe every one of us has the ability to create positive change, not just for ourselves, but for our communities, starting with a deeper understanding of how the world around us actually works. Knowledge is power, but only if you use it actively, consistently, and creatively. That's when it turns into real, lasting, meaningful value. Start that journey today, one small step at a time. I'll be right here with you, walking that path together. I'll see you in the next videos where we'll keep opening new doors of knowledge, one page, one idea, one conversation at a time. Wishing you energy, curiosity, and the courage to keep learning and building your own future.